That was my knee. Oh, that was nasty. Oh, aging.
It is. It is a thing.
Ugh, don't like it. Oh, hi, Rachel.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm well. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, what a day.
This is the weird drag out part, waiting for somebody to pop on here.
Yeah.
That, like, whenever I did this before, I would always, like, get my coffee ready. And that's what everybody watched me do, was just get my coffee ready until somebody popped on here.
Oh, goodness. This is going to be a fun morning. This is really going to be a fun morning.
I'm excited about this one. I have a lot of fun notes.
Yay. Oh, goodness.
I'm really liking my Monday mornings.
Yeah?
Right? Well, no, I tell you what, I'm liking my whole Mondays all together right now. Because, like, over the weekend, I'm like, oh, that's right, we got this topic.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, like, really spend some time and meditate on it so I have some type of clue what I'm talking about.
You're so much better than me.
You're
So much better than me.
Look, it sounds good. It's chaos in my head, though. It's chaos in my head, though. So I do that, and then my home group is Monday night, too.
Okay.
So, like, what a great way to start off the week. It's my day off for sure, and then, like, I start this, I have to get my headspace ready, and then I have to maintain some spiritual goodness throughout the day until I get to my home group. So,
I love that.
Mondays are just great.
Absolutely love that.
Speaking of which, good Monday morning to all you out there in social media land.
Hello.
This is... This is Rachel and Michael. We're gonna be okay.
Yeah, we're making it. We're making it.
Too funny.
Oh my goodness.
Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about cross addiction and our takes on it and our perspective on it, and just let y'all know what we think about it and the stuff we've learned over this last week.
Yeah, this is going to be a juicy morning. So actually, let's get things kicked off with our meditation for the day. How about that?
Yep.
How about them apples? All right, so it says, this is from Hazelden, Keep It Simple. Love this book. If you don't have it, you should definitely have it for your coffee table, bedside table, morning chat with JC or the original OG.
OG.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It says, June 13th, the reason why worry kills more people than work, that is that more people worry than work. And it says, worry is a lonely activity. It puts distance between us and others. Our program is full of ideas about what to do with worry. In step 3, we turn our will and lives over to God. This includes our worry. Our slogans also suggest what to do about worry. One day at a time, live and let live, easy does it, let go, let God. Their main message is stop worrying. Trust the program. Trust your higher power. Everything will be okay. It says prayer for the day. Higher power, I give you my worries. Teach me how to trust again. I want to trust in you, my program, and myself. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, I do too.
Love that. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about today, because a lot of times when we start to worry, we want to distract ourselves from that worry.
Absolutely.
And in distracting ourselves, we oftentimes turn to things that are outside of us that numb the pain temporarily with dopamine, but then we find that it does no good in the long run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, so we're talking about cross addiction today, and before we get into like our personal takes, and I don't know about you, but I'm going to talk about my personal experience with cross addiction, just because it has been something that's popped up more than once in my sobriety. But let's talk about, there's a bunch of terms out there, and I knew of cross addiction. I know of dual addiction. Mm-hmm. I know of addiction transference, but you labeled on me today. That's another one, and they're not all the same thing, but they're very, very similar.
Yes, it was addiction interaction disorder. And so, like, addiction interaction disorder, and the way that
which makes more sense, actually.
Well, thank you, scholars of addiction. Because what it talks about is, like, the actions we take. Because everything we do is an action, right? And a lot of times the actions we take become a disorder when we're using it inappropriately.
Right.
And so, addiction interaction disorder. That I kind of fell in love with that term this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me talk about dual addiction. I in active addiction was dual addicted to things. So dual addiction is having two things you're addicted to at the same period of time. So mine was prescription pills and alcohol. Like there were always two things going on. I could go without one as long as I had the other. So that's dual addiction. Did you have that too?
Actually, no, I was kind of a purist.
Look at you. Look at you.
Not to say that I was a better addict by any means, but like my addiction was just methamphetamine. Like that's it. And even though I would drink occasionally, I drank to be around people who I could then find methamphetamine.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And so drinking had too many calories for me, and I wanted to be really skinny.
That's funny. That's funny. It's all diet choices in active addiction.
Not the best. It got me there.
Okay, so that's dual addiction. And then for cross addiction and addiction transference, and then what'd you say it was?
Addiction interaction disorder.
So from what I understand, it's when you've gone a period of time without anything and life kind of hits, and then it's maybe not your old addiction. So like I have not gone back to drinking, I have not gone back to abusing drugs, but I have done things like this pops up a lot, but screen addiction.
Whoa. Like television screen or like
Facebook gets me a lot.
Yeah,
Facebook reels get me a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to escape from something I don't want to think about or process or deal with. And then what ends up happening is I get on Facebook and I start scrolling. And every single time I do this movement or I enjoy somebody's post that's on there, especially if it's a Facebook reel, my brain starts to release dopamine, which is the pleasure hormone in your brain, the reward hormone that goes on. And so then I do it again and I get another boost of dopamine. And so then all of a sudden I know, like, I'm not kidding, I will be sitting there for 4 hours fighting to have to pee because I want to keep doing this. Oh. And it's all because I don't want to sit still with what I'm going on.
Right.
So like that's not going to break my sobriety, but that is a behavior that I'm exhibiting during those times, and that's a form of cross addiction.
Right. And so like when we talk about addiction, we're talking about eradicating addiction within our own persona and our own life. Like, I love that explained that addiction is a weed, right? And unless we pull the weed out at its root, it's going to come up again in probably some other form or fashion. And you said the main word on the head, like dopamine, right? For me, like, whenever we do anything, there's always some type of dopamine release. And so, like,
absolutely,
cross addiction isn't necessarily it isn't a negative thing that we're getting addicted to, but we do overdo it. And like I've thought this from the beginning. Like when I first got out of treatment, I deliberately stayed off of Facebook and social media. Granted, I did post, but I made sure to put the phone down afterwards because I think they're all named very appropriately. Like Reels, reeling you in,
sure
right?
Sure
TikTok, taking your time away. Like it's named appropriately because that's exactly what it does for us in our lives. And for someone like me, I know that one of my biggest downfalls is I love being around people and I love seeing people. Now, that's not a bad thing, but when I get isolated because I'm like looking at people's lives, like that is a bad thing. And I spend hours on end. Like I'll take a lunch break, like I'm only going to spend like 5 minutes looking at this, and then my entire lunch break is done, or my entire nap time, which is very important for me, like it's gone, and then I'm mentally unstable for the rest of the day. Like, it impacts us on so many levels.
Absolutely, it does. There's even this thing to where, like, I have to, if somebody sends me, I'm not saying don't get on Facebook. I'm not saying don't get on the Reels or TikTok or whatever. What I'm saying, like, for me, if somebody sends me a TikTok, like, you send me some.
I do.
So if somebody sends me those, I have to, like, make sure that I'm in the right state of mind before I even hit it.
Right.
And it can be a YouTube clip. It can be, it doesn't even have to be a reel. It could be a meme that somebody sent me through Facebook that's going to, like, as soon as I hit that, it's going to send me down this rabbit hole. Yeah. I need to make sure that I've got time to do it. That's the first thing. Yeah. And if I don't, I have to ignore it. I have to make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind.
Right.
Because too many times, like, if I don't have, I don't know how to explain this. If I don't have control over my own mental capabilities of being like, okay, you looked up 1, you looked up 2, you looked up 3, now get off. If I'm not in that space,
Right.
like, just put the phone down.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
how I am. That's
Right.
how I am.
No, like
I don't have enough control to do it.
right. Same. And so like taking it from that type of dopamine release, there's also like one thing that I've come to understand is like I had to come up to the mindset that any life prior to treatment is gone. Like that life, that person is dead, right? And so as I started building the new building blocks of who the new Michael is, what does that look like? What does that feel like? I had to become very sensitive to things that took my time, took my mind space, took my thought process, and took that anything that caused me to feel better just by doing it, right?
Right.
And so like not only phone, social media time, screen time, but also meetings for me became a thing because I was doing like 2 or 3 a day, which was good in its time. But then it became, I realized sometimes I couldn't think without those people. And like that became kind of treacherous for me mentally.
Okay.
Because then I was thinking about when's the next meeting, when am I going to be there, how long is it going to be there, like, which is, it's good for a beginner. But as I evolved, like I had to start thinking, okay, I need to create a balance in my life, right? I need to actually get to life and get to my meetings. But then on top of that, things like food, like I became obsessive about food.
Yeah.
Like, it was a thing. And so, like, I was obsessively cooking it, making it, thinking about how I was going to eat it. And even today, I obsessively overthink. I'm working on it. I obsessively overthink about what I'm going to eat and how I'm going to eat because my body's a trigger for me, right? And so my cross-addiction mentality has created this thing where I'm, like, thinking about food, but at the same time trying to be focused on what's in front of me, too. Like, literally the drive over here, while I was listening to some YouTubers, I was like, ooh, what am I going to eat today? I'm starting to grumble, like, donuts or McDonald's, or how about I just eat what I have in the fridge? Like, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, but I have a totally different perspective on this.
Please.
So, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain this the way it's in my head, but I'm going to try for you. So, I'm hearing you say that you're struggling with the food aspect because you want comfort from food and you're having to say like, no, I'm using this choice. So, mine's a little bit different. So, I do have a cross addiction. Mine's more on the anorexic side. Now, while I say this, keep in mind, I used to be over 250 pounds. So, I've been there.
Right.
And this is a good example of what addiction transference looks like. So I was an overeater for years and years and years. That was my comfort, my go-to. If I wasn't in active addiction, I was overeating. And I got really heavy. I started working out. I started really working on me. And then something happened once I got under like 180 pounds. And I think because for the first time ever, I started losing weight, and it was like, dopamine was probably getting released like crazy every single time I got on the scale. It's probably what was really happening, and I probably got addicted to, that. And then holy crap! So I'm also going to the gym every single day whenever this is going on. So every single time I go to the gym, that releases dopamine again. Yeah. So then my addict behavior, addict behavior really starts kicking in here. And so what ends up happening is because I start getting this huge high of the scale going down, I start working out crazy and I stop eating. Yeah. And I would not let myself have over 600 calories a day. And I had to work out 3 hours a day. And if I didn't do that, my life was fucking horrible. It was miserable. I hated myself. So like, and I'm better now. I had to go through a whole different type of treatment than being around the rooms and stuff. But like there was a lot of therapy that got involved in that, and a lot of internal self-love stuff and seeing myself from different perspectives. I still struggle with body dysmorphia, which will trigger all of this. But here recently, like I was sharing last week, I'm going through some medical situations that has me off and has me wanting to use.
Right.
Well, I'll be danged, like, so I can't really walk and get around.
Right.
But in the last 2 months, I've lost like 15 pounds.
Wow.
Well, it's because I'm scared of getting
Right.
fat, and
Right.
because I don't feel like with my medical condition, I'm losing my identity and my sense of value and sense of worth right now.
Right.
So to control what I can, I'll make myself small.
Right. Right.
And I will deprive myself of that self-love and that nutrients and that not nutrients, self-nurturing. I will deprive myself of all those good things because I'm not worthy enough to have it because I'm going through this medical situation.
Right.
And it's just a different form of my cross addiction. And I know not everybody can probably relate to that, but that is something that does struggle with me. I am aware of it and I am working on it. But it's like so I'm supposed to get 1,200 calories a day. I hit that 1,000 point to like, and this is just like been this last week. I hit that 1,000 point, and there's this internal war that goes on, which is like, no, you can't eat. No, you can't eat. With yours, like, but I want the donut. I want.
Yeah,
So it's like it's the
do.
same fight, just different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And every single time I go through a stressful situation, this eating disorder pops up.
Right.
And thank goodness I have a program that
Yeah.
I can apply to this crap too. Otherwise, I'd probably be lost.
Right. And I love how it's all mirrored in our own personal self-worth, right? Mm-hmm. Cross addiction comes out of seeking that self-worth and what brings that about, and the dopamine release oftentimes is where we gauge that from. And
I really did not put that together about the gym until just now. That was
really cool. That was really cool. And that's one of the fun things about being in recovery is we're constantly reevaluating and rediscovering ourselves. And I remember my aunt once asked me, and this was a few months in my recovery, she's like, Michael, don't you ever get tired? Like, don't you ever get tired of always thinking about what you're doing and what you're thinking and what you're saying? And I'm like, I could get tired, but I know my life depends on it today.
It sure does.
And so if I don't do these evaluations, then we go right back to square one. And that's a square that is non-negotiable, like not even an option. And so like one of the things that I've started to really deliberately work on are the people around me in the aspect of my close circle, like my partner and my, like all this, which a long time ago, I would say that I was a little addicted to my relationship too. Like, you can literally become addicted to anything.
So let's just take a moment real quick.
Yeah.
So I made a list
Oh, good.
of things that I could think of people being cross addicted to. So gambling, that's one I see a lot. I don't have any experience in that,
Right.
but I have sponsees that have struggled with that. I know I have a lot of people in the program I know have struggled with that. So gambling, shopping, sex, working out, food. I have relationships down, gaming, the internet, social media. And then I thought of this one. I didn't even think about it, but porn. That's a huge addiction too.
Oh, yeah.
And again, it's all, if you think about every single one of those, there's a release of dopamine in every single one of them. But relationships is really, really interesting. Because I think we get addicted to the chaos.
Yeah. Part of it, yes. Part of it, the chaos. Part of it...
And codependency.
Yeah. And the desire of being seen. Like, right? Because a lot of my addiction revolved around, A, I didn't see me, but B, I didn't think other people saw me too. And what's really helped this time around is... I love my partner. Like, don't get me wrong, I think for the first time it's actually this well balance of like he gets on my nerves and I love him just enough to not like kill him. But kidding, I love you, babe. But at the same time, for the first time I'm actually listening to him when he says that he finds me attractive. When he says that I'm beautiful. When he says that, you know, like this is probably TMI, but like when I walk by him in the morning, he's like, damn. I'm like, that feels good, right? I still do the work that it takes for me to maintain my mental stability, but I'm not letting those words go without being heard.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
And so it takes the pressure off of having to, like, I still work out because it's for my sobriety, but at the same time, I don't kill myself at it.
Yeah.
I don't kill myself at, like, making sure that I don't eat this, right? Because I'm being seen by the person who matters the most to me. And that's a healthy relationship. Now, there are some relationships that 100% are not healthy, right? And those are typically the ones that we spend life spiraling around. But I find myself not doing that today because I'm actually listening to him, as opposed to trying to create something for him to speak to. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I have it on a different, I think it's just because I've got some more time.
Yeah.
Not sobriety, just because I'm a little bit older.
Yeah.
Because my thing is, and I've also, I recently started dating somebody, but I was single for over a year before I did. When before an active addiction, I was bouncing from one relationship to another. Like, that's
You mean taking hostages?
That taking hostages like they were candy. Like y'all had to watch out. But I think part of it was taking that time for me was I really don't care.
Right.
And it's not that I don't care in a negative way. I really like the me that I found.
Right.
So whatever, like, that's great that my significant other would find me attractive. Of course, everybody wants that. But what I have found is it's more important that I find me attractive.
Right.
And that I find me beautiful. And that's been something like, I really, really like me today.
Right.
So for me, it's just making sure I hang on to that so I don't slip down this anorexic slide. Like, I really like me. If we want to stay healthy and balanced like we have been right now, I need to make sure I maintain my recovery the way I need to so I don't slip down, because it's very, very easy for me to do.
Right. Excuse me. So, like, I want to address this because, like, I love the fact that you say we get to that space where we like us, right? Where we like ourselves. We all, like, for me, I get to those spaces and then I can ride that wave for like 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe a whole month. And then I get to a space where the, for lack of a better term, like the cocktail or the ingredients that I've been using they wane, right? And so something has to change.
Like, I get rattled somewhere.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing for me too.
And so, and in that, like, to help myself from not jumping overboard into upping something or just finding something else new and just driving it home, you know what I mean? That's my addictive personality is, oh, this new thing makes me feel good, so I'm just gonna jump on it.
Right.
And then everything else kind of falls by the wayside because I'm so focused on that. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And that goes for maybe about 2-3 weeks, and I realize, oh wait, Michael, you're being crazy again.
Right.
But then I get back on this balance. That makes sense?
It absolutely does.
So, like, cross addiction, even though I have to be constantly aware of it, it still pops in on this journey of recovery here and there, right? The issue is once we have friends and we have relatives and all that jazz who we acknowledge and we see when they start spiraling down the path, that makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
To where it's like so focused on that one thing that it's like, how you need to come back. You need to come back to reality, right?
I think
does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
And I always pose myself with this question whenever I start to see those red flags.
Okay.
Is this making my life unmanageable?
Oh, that's good.
Because if it's making my life unmanageable, that's not acceptable in my world anymore.
Right.
So I will go back to the anorexic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I am in an anorexic phase, like I am right now, and even though I'm meeting my calories, I could hit 2,000, just so you guys understand. I could hit 2,000 calories every single day, but if I'm in the gym burning 3,000, I'm still anorexic. So even if you see somebody eating, it doesn't mean that they're healthy. I believe it's a headspace thing. At least it is for me. So, I forgot what I was going to say. Gosh dang.
It's okay.
Where'd
That's
it
the
go?
beauty thing about having this as a
Where'd it go?
conversation.
Where to go? Oh, we were talking about spiraling.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have to ask myself, like, if I'm starting to notice that I'm cutting down calories, or I don't want to eat, or I'm fighting my body image, is it making my life unmanageable? Mm-hmm. So at that point, I struggle with blood sugar problems because I do this peak and valley eating thing. So am I being crabby? Am I needing more naps? Is this making it to where people don't want to be around me? Am I getting short with my kids? Am I getting moody? And that, like we talked about, that dry drunk in me comes out? Well, okay. So that's unmanageable for me. I have to have a healthy sugar level. I have to eat. I have to keep my metabolism going. Right. That is manageable and healthy. So that's where I have to ask myself, like, okay, girl, look, I know we want a hot girl summer, but like we need to eat and we need to do it healthy.
Right.
So that's just where it comes back to me. And again, if I'm scrolling on TikTok and I'm noticing that, like, I've gone 4 hours without eating. I haven't even gone up to go to the bathroom. I don't even know what my kid's doing right now. Like, that's unmanageable. So I have to put that in check. So that's kind of where, that may not work for everybody, but that's kind of like, oh, wait, let's get in the right frame of mind to make things manageable for my life. Because manageable is a lot easier
yes, it is.
than unmanageable.
Very true, very true. And when I first came into the program, like, and I have to say, really came into the program, like, I had to realize I am not a good manager of my own life. Period. Right. And so that's when
Thank goodness for sponsorship.
Sponsorship, yes. Speaking of which, happy birthday to our sponsor.
That's right.
Yes, super proud. But at the same time, I had to get to a space where I stopped trying to come up with all the answers for myself and just clung to the program, clung to prayer, clung to meditation, clung to just other people to realize they know how to manage life better than I do. So how can I follow their path? And not overdo it, but at the same time, take bits and pieces and apply it to my life in an aspect to not overdo any particular area and not to allow myself to spiral and not to allow myself to pick up the reins and try to manage my own life. Yeah.
I just thought of something else. Well, I guess I didn't mention it earlier. I was going to say people can get addicted to, like, negative emotions.
Oh!
And I kind of mentioned it earlier about the chaos, but that's what I meant. Like,
yes.
That, because you're talking about that spiral. I think people get addicted to that spiral.
Yeah.
To where they can spin out of control and things are horrible. And maybe it's because in active addiction we were so used to the chaos that's what we somehow crave internally.
So used to it, yes. Yes.
I'm not sure, but I think that's definitely a thing.
Yeah. Oh, no, it most certainly is. I've sat in countless meetings where people have talked about that very thing. Like, especially when things start getting good for a lot of us is when we start...
that is so true.
When we start to, like, burn
I need to mess some stuff up.
Yeah, I gotta mess something up. And I lived in that space. Like, many of my friends know me and, like, people around me, I'm good at giving a show, right? But my show for me seemed null and void and boring if there wasn't chaos, right?
Yeah.
And so I used to, do I still do it? Maybe I won't admit to it, but I think I do. But like, I used to create drama in my own life, like personal drama, because I knew how to clean that up. Like, I could get my life clean to a certain space and then mess it up because I know those early cleaning blocks.
Yeah.
Like, I messed up. What do? Call somebody, talk to somebody, work through this. But then once I get to a certain space, I stop that growth. I stop evolving. Today, I'm grateful that I don't have to burn things to continue growing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
What I do is I get to an uncomfortable space of having things good. Now, that's not to say every day is great. But I get to a space where things are good, and then I'm like, okay, I'm getting uncomfortable now. Why am I getting uncomfortable? And then I take new steps to evolve and grow. Like, and those steps are guided instead of me trying to create them.
Yeah.
I'm guided through those steps. And that's one of the things I love about life. You're very correct. I know myself personally. I was addicted to chaos. I was addicted to having
I think
to be
I was too. Especially, like, even the first couple of years in sobriety, I think I was. Without even understanding that's what was going on.
Right. The other day I sat down, and I think we talked about this once, is, like, I couldn't remember the last time I got angry. Like, I couldn't remember it. I was like, what did I get angry about? When was that? You know? And then I'm grateful for that today, but at the same time, I'm like, well, do I need to create something to get angry about? Like, just because. Right. But, yeah.
I had and like I said, I used to be really addicted to chaos. But, you know, I've got 5 years. In the last couple of years, things have been really chill and balanced and good. And a couple months ago, I had an encounter with one of my neighbors, and there was an individual around here that was yelling at me and calling me names, and I was rattled for weeks over that because I'm not used to that type of chaos. I'm used to peace and serenity and calm, and like, ooh, like I had to work some spiritual stuff out on that one because there's I wasn't used to it, and because I just felt like I was being violated and attacked because I'm not used to the chaos. It just threw me. It really kind of rattled me.
Right.
It's not my norm anymore.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
The other day I was riding in the car and I stopped at a green light. Why did I do that? I don't know. But the car behind me got mad and like zoomed past me. And I'm still a recovering people pleaser. And I was like, oh, I made them upset. Like, and I started to get emotional. I don't know. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does make
Okay,
sense.
cool.
I always tell them, like, aw, you're so impatient. I hope you have a good day.
I'm like, you're really important.
Right. Yep. So something else I wanted to talk about is the big thing to me about cross addiction is it's a change of behavior. Mm-hmm. Addiction has a stereotype of it has to be drugs or alcohol. And that's not the case at all. Mm-hmm. So it's really a change of behavior to me that makes one's life unmanageable. Mm-hmm. So whatever that fill in the blank is, that could possibly be a cross addiction. So it's just something I think we all, because they come in many, many different forms. Mm-hmm. And you got to keep in mind, if you're somebody that's watching this and you're in recovery and you don't think you have any right now, well, the interesting thing that which I was suspicious of anyway, but one thing that I learned while I was researching this is that most of the time it happens after big life changes. Yeah. And, you know, some life changes aren't so great. Some of them are pretty rough. Mm-hmm. So things like losing a job or somebody passing away or...
Moving.
Ooh, moving, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Because that's stress. Anything that's going to add stress. If you notice shortly after there's been a big life change and your behavior is having to... not even drastically change, it could be slowly, but it starts changing so you can adapt to that change, and that behavior is not so good for you, you might want to consider the fact it's a cross addiction. Mm-hmm. Because it might be. Right.
And one of the things, I love the fact you point out, like addiction isn't just substance, right? It isn't just consuming a substance. It's any behavior that we overindulge in to feel better. And in recovery, and for those who aren't in recovery and for those who are just now finding yourself, like, thank you for being good to yourself and coming. But at the same time, the most awkward conversations I have with people are when we talk about it, because I'm very transparent about it, but then they quickly deduce my recovery or my addiction to just a substance and completely negate the fact that they may be overdoing something. You know what I mean? Like, I have some people in my life who love to shop religiously, daily. There's packages on the doorstep daily, but that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Or and again, not calling anyone out, but like,
well, yeah, it's not meth, duh.
I know it's not,
and that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
It's because, well, I'm not drinking. I'm just on Amazon.
Yeah.
But like, again, you're on Amazon, scrolling, shopping, you hit click, and then it shows up at your door. Oh, all that dopamine getting thrown down your brain. Like,
meanwhile, your cousin still is waiting for you to call them and apologize. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's things like that. It's like, I love recovery because it keeps me in perspective that the only important thing that I have are my relationships and my friendships and my bonds. Yeah. Making sure the street stays clean in that. If the street stays clean in my relationships and in my internal self, everything else
lines up. It sure does.
Like,
it
everything,
sure does.
Everything. And that's one of the coolest parts to me.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things, like, I do my best to never... The danger of a single story. It's a TED Talk. If you've never heard it, I recommend it. But have you heard about it?
I don't think so.
It's when we take one story, say for instance, we read a book about a person who lives in Nigeria and life's just miserable, but then we take that person's experience and like blanket it over the entire country itself. And then when we go there, we're like, oh my God, they have shopping malls? They have this? They have what? this is nothing like the book I
Right,
read.
right.
Because what we did was we took a single story and blanketed over everyone else.
That's good.
And so we do that in our own lives. And so when I meet someone and they tell me, they tell me that they're an addict, or, well, I can't really use that one because they tell me that they are from Canada, right? And I'm like, wow, but I have to be very careful not to take that one person's experience and make it the entire nation, right? And so when someone hears about our addiction, they can't take their cousin's experience
Right.
of being on the street using gutter water to, infuse their needle.
Right.
Like, they can't blanket that over all addicts. It's something that we have to specifically listen to the person in front of us
Right.
and hear them, and then get to know their story. And so I say all that to say that in my recovery, I have found that when I hear someone speak on their addiction, or I hear someone speak on their life, I have to listen to that one person and understand that that person isn't struggling with everything that I already assume isn't found in that world. That makes sense?
It totally does.
And that helps me stay grounded, it helps me stay rooted, and helps me be personable with that individual. As opposed to just being like, oh, like, you like beer every day. Cool. So next week you'll be at the ER. You know what I mean? Like, I have to be very careful of that. I hope that made sense.
It does make sense.
Okay.
The other thing I think about is that when we do that cut and paste,
Yeah.
this applies here, this applies here, this applies here. The thing that a lot of people miss out, for example, I don't have a gambling addiction. I am willing to work with people who that might be their dual addiction, because for me, it all goes to the way that we think. And that's the commonality for me. The commonality is we think like addicts, we do crazy behavior, so that's the common ground. So I sometimes have to really, really focus on what's the commonality here, not the differences.
Right.
I've never done meth, but it doesn't mean I can't relate to you, because we have a lot of things in common, because
Yeah.
we think like addicts.
Yeah, we do.
And so I have to really focus on that. Not so much the big topic of your story. I want the details. I want to
Right.
know how you think about this.
Right. I love that. Absolutely love that. Because that's how we stay connected to one another. That's how we gain empathy for one another. Because we can all struggle with anything. Like, hell, like, whoever's watching this, you could be struggling with something right now and think that you're so isolated, when in all actuality you're not.
No, not even.
We're all the same.
Right.
And the only thing to allow light into that darkness is to open up about it and not think that we're different. Like, and that's the one thing that I've found that has broken my own personal cross addiction at times, is speaking to it. Shame can't survive being spoken.
Right.
And so once I speak into it, then I'm able to take other people's perspectives and to understand what I'm living with, and how can I take the next steps, or what next steps can I take to help me readjust to this new life that I have,
Right.
without overdoing this one area. That makes sense?
It makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So we talked about the dopamine. So, all right. We have a lot of friends in recovery.
Dude.
And we are normally, there's a saying, stay on your own side of the street. Which means, I'm not going to get in your recovery, and you don't get in my recovery, because I don't have the right to judge you on your recovery, because if I'm looking at your side of the street, I'm not focusing on mine.
My mom and Pam has a different
What is
statement.
it?
She says, "Not my hula hoop."
Right,
And then
right.
she asked permission to get into my hula hoop,
Yeah.
if she sees that I need
So
it.
let's talk about for those of us that are in recovery. I will say, I don't know how I would feel about somebody else who's not in recovery getting into my business. I think I might get a little salty about that. I'm trying my best to have open ears. It just might take me 24 to come back to you and talk to you about it, though. But like somebody in recovery, my ears are more open because y'all think the way I do. So with that being said, what are some graceful ways of getting in somebody's hula hoop?
Asking permission.
Because that's a good. As soon as you said, like, man, that's great.
Asking permission. Like, I never.
As in, hey, can I talk to you about something? I'm concerned for
Right.
you. I've noticed.
I never offer advice. Like, that's one thing. Granted, I do have some people in my life I diligently work to not offer advice because at the root of who I am, I love being an educator. I love being a teacher. And I love helping others along their path. But there are people, like, they didn't ask me to help them. They're wanting to vent to me, and, which is great.
Right,
I love it.
right.
Vent to me. I just, at the end of a venting session, I ask them what their solution is.
Yeah.
Because I never want to leave anyone hanging, and I don't want them to leave themselves hanging in that mess. But I always ask permission, like hands down. That's the most graceful way to step into someone else's hula hoop for me, and for someone to step into mine.
Yeah, that's great. And the other thing, I like the fact that you said, like, I don't give advice. Because for me personally, if I am dealing with some addictive behavior, if I'm dealing with cross addiction, or even if my mindset isn't right, or I am struggling with something, it's not that I want you to tell me how to fix it. I don't need your suggestions. I just need your love and support.
Right.
And I need you to hear me.
Right.
And if those things happen, then I might ask you.
Right. Right.
What's your take on this? What if you were in my shoes? What would you do? But I just want to really put that out there. Is that, like, the main thing is just being a loving, supporting friend, individual to them. Just like, hey, I've noticed this is going on. Every single time we hang out, you're always on your phone, and it's difficult to have a conversation with you. You know, and it kind of feels like you're not present in this moment with me. Is there something I can do to help you stay present in this moment with me? Right. And it's just offering help. I'm not telling you to put your fucking phone down, you know.
As much as I want to.
Right. Because there are some people that are absolutely horrible about it. And so, like, there's a group of my friends that, like, when we get together every 2 weeks, and the rules are no phones. And for the next 2 hours, there's no phones. And now we have them on the table, but they're face down. And so that way, if something arises, but, like, we get, every 2 weeks, we get 2 hours together. We all want to be present in that moment. And part of it is because we've had to call each other out on some stuff. Like, can you get off can we have a conversation, please?
Right.
It's just because that's how our brain is. So, try not to tell people how to live. Just try to be a loving, supporting individual if you notice this type of stuff. With that being said, if this was my spouse shopping all the time, I don't know how loving I would be. Be like, look, I'm gonna need you to I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
I
better have separate finances. I don't know.
That's a whole nother can.
Right.
That's a whole nother can.
So I'm not saying that we have the cure-all, fix-it solution here. But I just, more times than not, I've noticed that a more loving approach helps people than just trying to let me control your life and everything in it.
Right.
That normally doesn't work.
Right. And also understanding that, for me, I have to understand that if someone does come to me and they ask for my opinion or my advice on something, like, because it does happen when people ask, I have to also understand how much it took that person.
Yeah,
to,
that's
like,
huge.
Come up with the courage to even
bring up the topic.
To bring up the topic. Because for us as an addict, like for me as an addict, that's one of the last things I'll ever do. But now, like, I understand the power and the gift in asking people, but it still takes work to get to that space. Yeah. It's not something I'm like, oh, let me go ask about how to do this. No, I'm literally going to watch YouTube until I can fix it myself. And then maybe if water starts springing out everywhere, then I'll come to you. Be like, listen. But yeah, so I have to be sensitive to the fact it took that person work to build the courage to come talk to me about that.
That's a great thing to bring up. It's a great thing. All right, so I have some little stats here.
Please.
That I found along the way. This, like, I almost feel like I need to double check this, because normally I check it at least 3 different resources. I checked it twice, so I feel like I still need to check it maybe one more time, because this was really, and maybe it's just so accurate. So what I found was that 20 million people in the United States have some form of addiction. Which I'm not sure exactly what our population is, because 20 million I can't process anyway. That's a big chunk of number. I can't comprehend that. So, we'll say, there's 20 million. 80% of that 20 million or potential to cross addiction, or what did we call it? What was the
addiction interaction disorder?
Yeah. So 80%. So
That's a lot.
last week we talked about how many people can make it to long-term sobriety. We were talking about there were 10 people in a room and what that looked like. So if there's 10 people in a room and we're all recovering,
Right.
we all have over a year of recovery,
Mm-hmm.
and there's 10 of us in a room, then that means 8 of us are struggling with cross addiction.
Yep. I believe that.
Whoa!
I believe
Whoa!
that. I strongly believe that.
That's a lot.
It is.
That's a lot.
It is. It is. But at the same time, I'm thinking back on my like personal experiences, and even at times when I even went through my cross addiction phase, and still do. A lot of times we can tell by the conversations that we're hung up on what we're.
Yeah, that is
cross-addicted.
true. That is true.
If I listen to someone give the exact same complaint 3 weeks in a row, I'm like, oh, this is a thing
Yeah.
for you. And even myself, if I go into a room thinking the same thing 3 weeks in a row, I'm like, I need to open up about this. You know,
Not just that, but like their energy and their demeanor kind of changes. They get a little bit rough around the edges. They get a
Yeah.
little bit more sarcastic and snarky, and
Yeah.
it's like, ooh, let me get some popcorn. Hold up, because this is gonna be good.
I love it. I love it.
So you can kind of see it. I think you can see it before they can.
Yeah, but again, we can't say anything unless they ask.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the hard part.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all I got today.
think
Got
so.
anything else?
No, I think that's it. I love this. I love the fact we're doing it. Thank you for doing this with me.
No problem.
I really
It's
appreciate
been
it.
fun.
This
It's
has been a lot of
fun.
fun.
Just real quick, we just want to make sure that we've thrown this out there every single time. We are not professionals.
Being zero.
0. We do not get paid for this.
Nope.
We are not licensed
Nope.
at all. This is just our own personal take on it, and all that good stuff. So here's the deal. If you've watched all of this and you keep watching, next week we are doing Q&A with Michael and Ray, and I actually have.
Is that next week?
That is-
no.
No.
Next week is relationships.
I'm a liar. I'm a liar.
It's
Is it
okay.
really?
I forgive you. Yes, next week is relationships.
Okay,
the
good deal.
27th is Q&A.
Okay, so you guys have 2 weeks. That makes me
Yeah.
feel better
Yeah.
about this. Okay. So in 2 weeks, we're doing a Q&A. I only have about 3 questions that somebody has reached out and asked.
Love
So
that.
if you guys have any questions about anything we've talked about over this past month, or anything about our personal recovery, just go ahead and let us know. I'm going to keep it anonymous. So it's just going to be
Yeah.
a viewer. I'm not going to throw names out there or anything else like that. But there's somebody that reached out to me, like brought up some really good points, and I just thought it'd be really good for us to discuss it. So if you have questions, please, even if you think they're ridiculous, or if you
Please.
already know the answer to,
Ask away.
go ahead and ask it so we have something to talk about in 2 weeks, because I'm a little nervous about how we're going to answer 3 questions and be done.
Well,
all.
listen, I can talk. I can talk.
That's it.
So, also, I want to throw out there that if you are working or you want to find out how you can keep up with us and maybe watch the videos that we've already posted, we have Still Here Recovery Facebook page.
Yeah.
Up there, all the videos are loaded, and the links to our YouTube channel, Still Here Recovery, can be found there as well. Go check it out. Follow along. Again, this is about keeping open dialogue between all of us. We are just the conduits.
Right,
You guys
right.
are the help.
Definitely.
That doesn't sound
And
right at all.
also, like, if anybody is on the Facebook page, if you want to post something up there just to ask somebody else who's, got an ear to listen, that's what that page is for. So use it as a tool if you can.
Exactly.
All
We're
right.
here for you. Love you.
All right, so that's all we got today.
Yeah, I'm Michael.
I'm Ray. I hope you do something, puts a smile on your face, and somebody else's while you're at it. Have a good one.
Have a good day.